And it's an awesome bait for that middle zone. Traditionally for that shallower water, 0 to 10 feet. But when we talk about some of these rigging methods in a second, we can get to a lot deeper depths with the same presentation now. And for that reason, this is one of the baits that is kind of a two-for bait. It's good for both the horizontal and the vertical environments, depending on how we rig it. For this stick bait right here, this is a 5-inch stick bait by Havoc called a flat dog. I like to fish the 1 or the 2-aught wacky style hook. That's a perfect fit for this bait, a 1 or a 2-aught wacky style hook. But I want to real quick talk about this bait when we rig it wacky style, because it's a little different than most of the stick baits out there. So most of your traditional stick baits, like your Senkos, your Yum Dingers, all those, right? They're totally round, all the way around. You look at it, it's very symmetrical the whole way down. It's tapered, but it's all the way around. And what we did with this one, on this stick bait, is we squashed it down to make it real flat. And it's the same theory of a lot of the baits we've been talking about, which is the surface area of a bait affects the way it falls, right? So when you get a bait that traditionally is very round, and you squash it and flatten it out, you know, it's a round bait, and I've sat on it and squashed it down, and I've made it more flat like a sandwich. What's that going to do as that bait falls? It's going to slow it down. It's going to catch more water. It's just simple mathematics. The more flat surface area there is, the more that catches water on the fall. So unlike a regular soft stick bait, when I rig this, now I got to be conscious of getting that flat side facing which way? Facing down, right? So when I wacky rig this flat dog, instead of going through the flat side, I'm going to go through the side of the bait in the middle, so that when it turns on the hook, right? When it turns on the hook, what side's facing down now? Flat side. The flat side. Does everybody get that? Right? So now when we have this bait parachuting down and doing that classic little movement, and you know what it is if you fish this bait, now it's enhanced and it's falling even slower because we've got a flat surface as that bait falls. And because of the shape of that jig head, right? Look at the shape of that jig head. What does that remind you? If this was a boat, what does the shape of that jig head remind you of? The jig head and the hook. What does that remind you of? A keel, a rudder, right? Look at it. It's exactly what it's like. It's like a keel or a rudder. And because of that flat bottom and that shape of that jig head, when we let that thing fall on a semi-slack line, here's how it's going to fall. It's going to kind of sled down. It's going to kind of glide down like that. Amazing. It's an amazing action on the fall, and it's something different than the dude in front of you throwing a half-ounce jig. It's different than the dude in front of you throwing a 3/8-ounce Texas rig. This one's kind of gliding. Triggers a lot of bites. But here's where the real difference maker is, and it's when this thing's on the bottom. We're talking about that bottom zone. The fish are feeding on the bottom. And when I cast it out there and let it fall on a semi-slack line, and I'm following it, and doof, the line bellows out, it's hit the bottom, this thing's going to do something on the bottom that's unbelievable, that those other baits don't do. A jig doesn't do. A tube doesn't do. A Texas rig doesn't do. That bait, when we stop it, it sits on the bottom. It's going to sit just like that. It's going to sit on an angle. It's going to sit nose down, tail up on an angle, off the bottom, just like this, right? If you're in school and the teacher has a question and you know the answer and you want to answer it really bad, plus on top of that, you got to take a leak really bad, show me what you would do. Now, you don't have to take a leak really bad. You'd be like, oh, me, call me. Me, call me. Me. That's funny, right? That's what this bait, that's what that bait looks like on the bottom. There's that dude in front of you throwing a Texas rig ribbon tail. He threw it out there and he's dragging along the bottom. It's laying on the bottom. It's getting lost in that debris and that silt and those weeds and that muck. It's just laying flat. But you come by, you throw this thing out there and it's sitting on the bottom, nose down, tail up. And as you move your rod, we're going to look at that in a second, as you move your rod, that tail's just like, hey man, me.
Hey, I'm Pete Gluzek,
And I'm Mike Iaconelli.
and this is Bass University TV.
Welcome to Bass University TV, an online video training course where you'll learn champion bass fishing techniques from pro anglers Pete Gluzek, Mike Iaconelli, and their talented special guests.
Everywhere I go in the country, I'm trying to use these techniques because I catch big fish that way.
From on the water to in the classroom,
We want to use that bait to help make that area even smaller and really find that sweet spot.
you'll learn sound techniques and strong fundamental bass fishing skills.
You want something that's got a nice limber action, that's going to allow you to build pressure and keep those hooks pinned against that fish's mouth.
Watch hours of video content on multiple topics at your own pace for a low monthly fee. Cancel at any time.
Hold on, because you're going to catch some big fish.
Information is power in the sport of fishing, so learn from the very best.
That's a key theory in all of fishing.
Subscribe to Bass University TV today.
Man, does it trigger a lot of strikes.
Here's the part that you're not going to hear anywhere else. This is the Bass University TV exclusive.